Welcome to Freedive Live with Ted Hardy, episode number 5. I'm a freediving instructor as well as freediving competitor. I'm the founder of immersionfreediving.com as well as freedivingsafety.com. So if you have never visited freedivingsafety.com, it's worth a visit. It's an online resource that provides an overview of freediving safety. So the idea is it covers basically everything that you would learn if you were to take a freediving class with me with regards to safety. You understand the rules, the risks, talk about the fatality numbers, how to tell if you're overweighted, what to do if your buddy has a blackout. So it basically covers all of that safety information, and you can access it for free. So if you haven't visited freedivingsafety.com, it's definitely worth a visit. All right, so for those that are just tuning in so that I can make sure that the chat is working, do me a favor and let me know where you're from, and would you consider yourself more of a recreational freediver or a spearfisherman or both? Right? 'Cause I get all sorts. So if you put that in the comments, that way I know that is working. Bear with me. I want to pull those comments actually up. I forgot to do that. All right, cool. Got that all working. All right, so we got chat's working. Excellent. So the format of the show for those that are new is I typically take one or two entertaining or educational stories from my career. I pick a topic to discuss in depth, and then I answer your questions live on the show. So let me know where you're from, spearfisherman, freediver, both. And then also, if you have questions that you'd like me to answer, I do that at the end of the show. I'll put them in. And basically, there'll be a portion towards the end of the show where I'll kind of read through all of them, and then I'll start answering those. If you have questions for me, we can do that. So first thing I'm going to go over is the first, as an instructor, the first kind of blackout that I ever dealt with. And as an instructor, it's an odd thing, right? I mean, so it's weird. As a scuba instructor, you know, obviously you're very concerned about everyone being safe and everything's, you know, is done correctly. And then so I switch over to teaching freediving, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's saying that someone may black out or have it, like, it might actually happen in my course, right? So it was definitely, you know, an odd thing. Now, you know, I actually had a conversation on the phone about this. You know, someone was like, you know, well, I'm not going to black out during my course with you. And I would, you know, my response is, you're probably not, right? I mean, it's very rare. If he was talking about the entry level course. I think the entry level course, I probably had, you know, 2, maybe blackouts the entire time in my career during that entry level course. One of them is a story I'm going to tell you about. But, you know, in general, these things are very rare in a freediving course, but I can't say absolutely that won't happen. So the story I shared with this guy who called today is he wanted to, you know, me to guarantee that he wouldn't have a blackout. And I said, well, it's like scuba, right? I had a woman come into the shop once. She had her young child, super nervous. I mean, she was practically hyperventilating, and she was living underwater. But, you know, well, my boy going to be safe? And yeah, he's going to be safe. I'll take good care of him. I've been training him for the past 3 years. You know, but I read the article about the, you know, that they can run out of air underwater. Oh my God, like, I'm like, you know, he's going to be fine. And so basically she was like, okay, just promise me, Ted, that he won't run out of air underwater. It's like she basically said that, and was just like, as long, you know, just as long as he says yes, I'm fine. And I'm like, no, I can't promise that. And her like eyeballs, like, she was like, what? I'm like, no, I can't promise that he won't run out of air. I can promise that he's been trained on what to do if he runs out of air. I can promise that I'm going to simulate him running out of air in a multiple of circumstances, but I can't wave my magic wand and say that there's no way that some regulator malfunction or whatever will happen. I'm like, I can guarantee that he'll be well trained for it, right? So it's the same thing with freediving. When I talked to this guy on the phone, you know, I said I can't guarantee that, but I'm like, it's extremely rare. But what I will tell you is that, you know, if something like that happens, you know, you're going to be in the safest place humanly possible. So I was I was really brand new. I was probably my first year. Um, and as a new instructor, I had this weird thing about this whole thing about someone having a loss of motor control or a blackout in the course. I'm like, I don't want anyone to be hyped. I don't want anyone, no loss of motor control, no shakers. I don't want anyone blacking out at all. Never, no, not at all. And there's the other part of me, it's like, yeah, I want one. And not because I want anyone to have a blackout, because I want to be tested. I want to put my skills to the test that I can take care of the situation, right? It's one thing to be an instructor and be like, oh yeah, I can totally take care of if something were to happen. But unless it's ever happened, are you so sure you can take care of it? You're not going to be sure until it happens, right? So it's kind of like the guys that run the bus or in the ambulance, right? If they've gone through all that training, they want something crazy to happen so they can put their, not because they wish ill on someone, but they want to put their skills to the test, right? So I was always this weird thing about I wanted something to happen, but I didn't. So I had a good mentor, Craig Gentry. He was an instructor with performance freediving, encouraged me along like a lot of people. He pulled the hook in us and got us sucked into to becoming freediving instructors and working with PFI. But he gave me some good advice. When I was all done with the program and I kind of started teaching, he sat me down and he goes, you'll never know. He's like, you never know what's going to happen and you can't let your guard down. So I remember that was one of those things I filed away. And sure enough, I had been teaching for maybe 6 months, 3 months. It was very new, and it was when I was teaching freediving classes in Fort Lauderdale for performance freediving. So it was the entry level course. So Kirk or Mandy wasn't even there, right? They were nervous because that was like the first time any instructors had taught classes when Kirk or Mandy weren't there, right? And so it was a really odd class. We only had 2 people in it. This was back before you could rent 6-packs, so it was like totally make any sense to take. We had like 2 people out on like Sea Experience or something, but anyway, so we're out there teaching this class, and it's an older couple, for sure. The guy had said on multiple occasions he had a sailboat, and he used to free dive down and pull the anchor up. So he did that all the time. And he described multiple situations of symptoms where he would come up, he would feel lightheaded, his fingers were tingling, he would see stuff, I'm like, yeah, you're describing a loss of motor control. Oh, no, I mean, I've been doing this for years. I'm like, yeah, you're describing a loss of motor control. So you just described me 3 times where you're out by yourself and you're pulling up the anchor and you're basically having a loss of motor control at the surface, which means, had that dive been a couple more seconds, that would have been a blackout and you'd probably be dead because no one in the water with you, no one's watching him. So he was a little kind of off put by me telling him that. But anyway, so we get him in the water and we're doing our pull downs. Warm ups, and the first things we do is we do these nice, slow, relaxed pull downs. I had the plate set for the first depth, 15 foot, right? And he comes up, does his pull down, comes up, hits the load, and goes out, right? 15-foot dive. It was maybe 40 seconds, but yeah, goes out. But luckily, because of what Craig had told me, and if you've taken a freediving class, I'm always right on top of those people, right? Close enough to grab me. Basically, I'm this close to them every time they surface. So I was close enough to them. Was I expecting that? No, I was not expecting someone to go out on a 15-foot pull down. And so, grabbed him, took care of him. He was fine. And so, fast forward, I remember ended up taking him. We went out to lunch after the class was over, and I remember he just kept wanting to be like, well, why? I said, well, I don't know why. I know that you weren't over breathing. I was following your breathing. We were counting. You were doing everything was good, and I basically said you shouldn't be free diving unless you have. I said, number one, you shouldn't be freediving, period, right? Why? Well, because you're prone to having blackouts, right? Because I think if I remember correctly, he had. I think we came back the second day and the same thing happened. So I'm like, yeah, no, you're done. I can't remember exactly what happened, but anyway. But what I remember is I remember taking him out to lunch, And I'm like, you don't need to be free diving. I'm like, you're at risk for having an issue because clearly, you know, you're having that on situations where you shouldn't. Um, and he was like, I said, you know, the only way I would condone you diving is if you, with a free diving instructor that you have confidence that if you black out, you're not gonna, they'll take care of you. He didn't want to hear that. He was like, well, I'm gonna keep diving, and I'm like, yeah, but you've already had these loss of motor controls going off the boat, right, trying to pull the anchor up. So those are 3 situations where you almost died. I said, you had you had a blackout on a 15-foot dive, right? It wasn't long at all. So for whatever reason, you are prone to having these issues. I think you should stop doing this sport, right? And so towards the end, you know, basically what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to, I wrote a return receipt letter, right? So I wrote him a letter suggesting that, you know, that he was, that I suggested he not do the sport because of the situation that happened. And that I suggested if he were to participate in the sport that it would make sense if he was doing it, if he had an instructor with him to work on it and see what we could do. But otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to. And I put that in read return receipt so that I have it in my file so that, that he knows that I told him that I don't think you should do that. So that was the first time anything like that had happened. And luckily for what Craig had told me, at least I was, although I was definitely surprised by it, I was ready for it and able to take care of it because I was close enough to grab and I'm always watching them, right? So it just goes to show you that, you know, you never know when something like that can happen, which is why you always want to be vigilant. All right, so let's see. So if you guys have questions you would like me to answer towards the end of the show, put that in. The other thing I'm going to do is I've got one of the things that I was asked about from someone on Instagram. He wanted to go over when I stopped kicking on my deep dives. So I pulled a video. I've got video footage of one of my 200-foot dives. So I'm going to be going through that, and then I'll basically be going over the parts and pieces of a dive that deep. Right, when you're doing a dive 200 plus, whatever. Right, you know, we don't just kick to the bottom, right? We have little stages and things that we do. So I'll basically go over the anatomy of my personal best dive, 279 feet, what all the parts and pieces are. So I'll be going over that at the end. Also, if you have questions, put that in the comments. I can see those, and then I'll answer those at the end as well. Now, the other thing that happened in my first freediving class I taught for performance freediving. So I was nervous. Of course I'm nervous, right? Kurt Crack is like flying me out to California, wherever we were, and I'm teaching this class, and I'm brand new, and yeah, I'm nervous. I'm an assistant. I'm not saying much. I have like little pieces to teach, but I'm still nervous. And so we're in this big pool, we had a big class of 20, 25 people, and I'm working with this older lady, and I can't remember exactly what was happening. I think we were going over the blackout rescues or something, and I was demonstrating. So I said, here, I want you to be the victim. And so I had her go on her back and black out, and I'm like going through and doing all the exercises, right? And then I take the mask off and I blow across the face, you know, blow, tap, top. And I'm like, all right, come around. She's like, you know, eyes shut, not moving. I'm like, all right, you know, I'm like, we're done. You come up, it's your turn now. Nothing. And I'm like looking around, like, she couldn't be, she couldn't be black out. She's fine. And I'm like, all right, come on, like, wake up, like, let's go, come on, it's your turn now, right? And then I'm like tapping on her face again. I'm like, hey, like, and I'm like, holy shit, like, someone died and just, I didn't even do anything. And so I'm like, okay, and then boom, and so I pinch the nose and deliver a breath, and sure enough, like, you know, she comes to a little aggravated. I'm like, what the hell, right? The only thing I remember is that I think she couldn't hear, and so anyway, I was like, so that was that's the only time I've ever delivered a breath for someone, right? I've never had to do that. And even blackouts, I've always seen blow, tap, talk across the eye does it, but I did have to put a breath in someone, and it was from a lady who I thought was dead in the pool. So that was that was in essence my first blackout rescue, but it wasn't actually real. Right. So another course that I have for those that have not seen it, it's absolutely the most popular course that I have, or the one that most people have signed up more than any course that I have. It's a course, again, it's free, and it's on how to increase your bottom time by taking a 20 to 30% bigger breath. One of the first things students do in my class, they sit down in the classroom, which is right over there. Actually my laundry room, but anyway, they sit down, and one of the first things I teach them is how to take a 20 to 30% bigger breath. If you want to increase your bottom time, the most simple way to do that is take down more fuel, right? If you put 20 to 30% more fuel in the car, it's going to go farther. If you put 20 to 30% more fuel in your lungs, you're going to hold your breath longer, right? So this is the exact method that I teach my students, and then you can access that. And so what I'll do is, actually, let me see. Yep. You can access all of the online courses I have at that website, onlineclasses.immersionfreediving.com. What I'll do is at the end of the show, once the show is done, give me 5 minutes, and I'll put all these links where you can access all that stuff, right? But definitely, if you haven't taken that course, you should check it out. It is free, and it will teach you to take a much bigger breath. All right. Kevin, good. All right, so again, if you guys have questions, put them in the comments. I will address those towards the end of the show. And like I always tell people, I mean, unless you've got a buddy who's a freediving instructor with 10 years of experience, you probably got an opportunity to ask a question that I can answer for you. So if you have questions, don't be shy. Stick them in there, and I'll answer those towards the end. Next thing I'll go over is a question I get a lot. One of the things, people ask me, definitely, spear fishermen tends to be most of the people that I get in my programs, and they're like, "But Ted, why the hell do I want to go out in the ocean and dive up down some stupid line, right? Like, I'm a spear fisherman, why are we diving on ropes? It doesn't make any sense, right?" So, one, that's a really good question. So if you think about it, most all the freediving classes, all that I know of, are taught with a line, right? Most of the people that take a freediving class in the United States are spear fishermen or recreational freedivers, i.e. meaning not competitive line divers. Okay, so that brings up a good question. Why the hell are we always diving on these lines, right? So there is an excellent series of reasons we teach on that line, and it does a lot of good things for us, right? So one of the things, I always tell my students is they want, everyone wants more bottom time, right? And so people will call me on the phone and they'll say something like, "All right, look, Ted, I heard about your course. I'll sign up right now. I'll put in the money right now, put my credit card in. If you can just guarantee me that, if I take the course, you'll get I'll get 15 seconds by 10, 15 seconds by. If you could just guarantee that you give me 10, 15 seconds bottom time, I'll sign up right now." And because I'm kind of a smart ass, I'm like, "Look, if you want 10, 15 seconds bottom time, put your credit card away and just dive down straight. Done. You just got your extra bottom time. You don't need to take a course, right? Just dive straight, right?" I look at so many freedivers and spear fishermen, right? They're going down at 15, 20, 30, 45 degree angles, right? If you want more bottom time, go down straight, right? Of course that makes sense, right? If you go down at an angle, it takes more time to get to the bottom, and it takes more energy. If you're going down at an angle, you're spending energy going that way when all we want to do is go this way, right? So the line is a very humbling tool that teaches / forces us to dive down straight. So the point is, the reason that I take them out there and we'll make them dive up and down this line is because eventually you're going to learn how to dive parallel to the line, right? Here's the line. You're going to learn how to dive right down by the side of the line without touching it. And then that way when we remove the line and there is no line, now when you're diving, you're going to be able to dive down perfectly straight, right? But the line I always say it's a humbling tool, because what it'll show you almost immediately is that you don't dive as straight as you think you do, right? And because what happens is you're free diving down. Let's say the line's right here, right? And as soon as you're going down, you're constantly having to push this line, right? Push this line off your face, right? It's always smash. I always see it smashing the student's mask, and they're pushing it off, right? One of my favorite ones, the student comes up, he's like, "Dude," he's like, "that current down there was crazy, man. That line," I'm like, "Yeah, no line pushing in the face, right? That was the line perfectly straight, and that was you going burn, 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 all the way down, right? So when you start feeling that sucker smash on your face, that's when you be like, "Oh, I'm doing that thing that he said I would be doing," right? So that's one of the big reasons we teach on a line is it forces you this skill and ability to go down straight like a laser, right? And I don't care if you're a free diver, you're a spear fisherman, underwater basket weaver, underwater bubble blower, meditator, whatever you do underwater, if you want to get down there more efficiently, straight. Okay, so that's why we do that. All right, so if you guys have questions, put them in the comments. Don't be shy. I am here to answer your questions. That's in essence why I'm here. So since this just came up and it's relevant what we're talking about, yeah, all right. So someone had said in the comments that the head position on descent affects the angle. That's one. I don't think it's probably the second most important one, but it's kind of hard to explain all this because you can only see a little bit of me. But I will try to briefly explain. One of the most common mistakes that every student that comes into my program does is they do this, right? On the way down, you should be like this. Hand on the nose, hand over the head, and you are looking just like this. Just like I'm looking at the camera, that is the way your head should be on descent. The way all my students are the first day, like all freediver and spear fishermen are, is they go down like this, right? They're looking at so if I was freediving right now, I'd be looking at the bottom of the ocean. I'd be looking where I'm going, right? But we want to be like this. Now, they are so many things wrong and bad happen to you when you go like this, okay? Let's talk about the first one, safety. Listen to the sound of my voice. Listen to when I look at where I'm going. Oh my God, it sounds funny. It sounds all weird. And then when I look back down, my voice sounds normal again, right? Again, straight ahead, voice sounds fine. And then as I start to look up, it sounds all funny and it sounds all weird, right? So the reason that's happening is my trachea is this big, right? It's this big when I'm in this head position. But when I crank my head, I'm increasing the size of the trachea, right? So I'm actually, it's getting bigger. Now the trachea, in essence, is a bunch of cartilage, right? So it's not very flexible, right? So when you take something that's not very flexible like cartilage, we say it's semi-rigid, and then you take it and you go, and you stretch it out, can you understand that it's now going to be less flexible, right? So we take it and go, right? And it's going to become less flexible and more likely to tear, right? So one of the reasons we don't want to do this is it runs the risks of having tracheal squeezes. I just ran across someone that took one of my safety courses and was talking about spitting up blood, and he's a spear fisherman, and he's saying, yeah, because he goes down with his head like that, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons we got to stop this, is it increases the risk for tracheal squeeze, where we're spitting up blood, we're causing a tear in here, and this is all bad. It's just as bad as it sounds. The thing is, when you get that tear, you're going to have a scar tissue, and it's going to heal over, but it's going to be weak, and then you're likely to get it again and again and again, right? So that's one of the reasons we want to absolutely avoid doing that, right? Simple rule is, if you feel like that's happening to you and you're coughing up blood and you feel a tracheal squeeze, you want, at a minimum, I would say, take 2 weeks off, right? All right. So number one reason we don't want to go like this, it puts us at risk for tracheal squeezes. Second reason we want to do this, when we look where we're going, it makes us go down at angles, right? And here's why, right? So if I were to kick symmetrically, this is what I mean by a symmetrical kick. What I mean is it's equally far this way, it's equally far this way. If I kick symmetrically, that's going to propel me straight down. That ain't the way most people kick. I look at my students the first day, almost all of them kick behind themselves. So I say, you're kicking behind you. They're like, what in the hell are you talking about? That makes no sense, right? This is a symmetrical kick. This propels me straight down, not the way most people kick. Most people kick like this, right? So if you kick like this, you're going to get propelled this way. Does that make sense? This kicks you straight, what you want. This kicks you at an angle, right? when you look where you're going, that rotates your pelvis, right? So it rotates the pelvis slightly. And once that pelvis is rotated, now the kick is going to come from the back, right? So one of the reasons we don't want to do that is it makes us go down at angles, right? Because it rotates the kick and it makes our kick all wonky, right? So we don't like to look where we're going because it makes us at risk for tracheal squeezes, spitting up blood. That's bad, right? It makes us go down at angles, inefficient. Right. The third thing it does is what limits most people's ability to free dive. What limits most people's depth they can dive to is almost always equalizing. And when I have good head position, right, that means there's a path straight to the eustachian tube and go straight to the eardrum. When I have my head cranked like this, I put a big bend, right? And I put a big bend in the eustachian tube, so it's harder for the air to pass around, right? So when we look where we're going, we're making it harder to equalize, right? We're making it harder to equalize. So some of these questions I will get to at the end for sure. So when we look where we're going, that makes it harder to equalize. So in essence, we don't want to look where we're going because it puts the risk of tracheal squeeze, it makes us go down at angles, and then it makes it harder to equalize the ears, and that's what limits most people's ability to dive. Most people in my entry-level course, they either get to 66 feet or they're stuck at 15 to 30 feet. The reason they're stuck at 15 to 30 feet is they're doing Valsalva, right? And that's why they're stuck, right? You can tell if you're doing Valsalva really quick. Just pinch your nose, put your hand on your stomach, equalize 5 times in a row. If you feel your stomach clenching every time you equalize, you're doing Valsalva, and that's why you're stuck at 15 to 30 feet. And if you go to online classes at emergentfreedom.com, I have an equalizing course that'll fix that issue. Okay, so that's why we don't want to look where we're going. Now, the question I always get about spear fishermen is, well, but what about the fish? Okay, so what I'll tell you is most spear fishermen coming into my programs, most free divers come into my program, they always default to going down with your head like this, your head cranked, right? So I'm saying don't make that the default position. Make this the default position, proper head position. And if you have to look, okay, look, but don't always go with your head crank. So let me give you an example, right? So if I'm spearfishing on a wreck at 60 foot, am I spotting the fish from the surface? No, right? So what I would do is I would go down, good entry, and at about 33 feet, halfway down, I would peek, right? And the way I would peek is I wouldn't crank my head because that does all this again. What I would do is I just go like this. I just rock back that way. When I go like this, I can still see the ceiling, but I kept my head in good position. I didn't go like this, right? So I would take a peek halfway down. If I need to readjust, I would readjust. Then I'd do about 2 or 3 more kicks. Then I'd plane myself out because 2 or 3 more kicks would put me in about 40, 45 feet. And then I'd just plane myself out, and then I would start hunting, right? So one of the things we teach in the intermediate class is I know how deep I am by how many kicks I'm doing. So it's pretty badass. I have a built-in depth sounder, right? So I always know how deep I am. So that's a useful skill, and one of the reasons that I teach that. Okay. Now, if you're in the shallows and you're in 10, 15 foot of water and you see a hawkfish going by, yeah, you're probably going to keep your eye on it as you're going down. So I mean, so if you have to, you have to. But I'm just saying, you know, if you don't default to this all the time, right? So that's my suggestion. Okay. All right. I got a little sidetracked. Not surprisingly, what was I talking about? All right, so we've got a lot of questions. I'm going to go through and answer. I'm also going to show you the video of that 200-foot dive, and I'll be talking about the parts and pieces of when you string a big dive together, okay? So one of the programs that I have is that I'm most excited about is my 28-day freediving transformation program. And what this program does is it basically gives you the 5 best dry land training exercises you can do at home, right? And it's awesome because you don't have to you don't have to go dive in the ocean 7 days a week. You don't have to rely on your buddy to go to the pool. You don't have some lifeguard tell you can't free dive. I might lose my patience when I get told by like a 18-year-old lifeguard that what I'm doing is dangerous. There's something called blackout. I'm like, yeah. Right. So the pools are getting more difficult to deal with. So this is something you can do at home, right? And so what I do is I lay out. You got a calendar that you print out, you stick on the fridge, and I'm going to give you specific workouts every week, right? So basically it's going to consist of 3 breath holding exercises a week. And each one is different because each one we're targeting a different weakness, right? So you're doing 3 specific breath holding exercises. Those take about 25, 40 minutes. So 3 days a week, I need about 25, 40 minutes of time from you. 2 days a week, 5 minutes of stretching, right? So you add it all up, it's about 2 hours a week. And then you string that together. So we get 2 days off, but you string that together for 28 days. And that's going to absolutely transform your physiology, make it so that you'll be able to hold your breath longer, dive deeper. I've already got students that are going through the program right now, and they're super jazzed about it, super excited about it. I've got guys that have doubled their breath hold. One guy's doing 4-minute and 40-second breath holds. So the idea behind the program is it's just, everyone wants to get better at freediving. Yes, you want to dive deeper. Yes, you want to stay down longer. But what most people do is they have no idea how to train. Right? When I say, what are you doing to train for your freediving? The typical answer is I go out freediving whenever I can, which is not targeted training. Right? You have to football player. What do you do to get better at football? They don't just go, I play football. No, they go to the gym, they do cardio, they do interval training, they do stretching training, they do all these different parts and pieces. And so that's what this program does. I've added a Facebook group, so I've got a private Facebook group where you guys can ask me questions, and then actually what you do is each day you post what you do. Day 1, this is what I did. Day 2, this is what I did, and all the students are talking to each other and motivating each other. It's pretty cool. You also get Noob Spiro's 99 Spearfishing Tips. This is an ebook that I'm including in this at no extra charge. So let's be clear, I'm paying them for every one of these courses that I sell so that you can get that book for free. It's Noob Spiro's Australian podcast. Super cool guys. I've been on the show twice. If you want to hear the podcast, just type Noob Spiro and Ted Hardy, and I was on 2 of the shows. But their ebook is awesome. It's got 99 spearfishing tips from spearfishermen all over the world. It's illustrated. It's really good. Again, included for free. You get a calendar you can stick on the refrigerator, and then you've got a cheat sheet of all the 5 exercises, so you kind of remember what to do. So you have to go through and watch all the videos, and you get access to the videos forever, right? Some people think it's a 28-day challenge. You have to start on one day and done on the other. No, you watch whenever you want. Once you've gone through the program, watch all the videos, and you start the training and go through it. Okay, I'll be giving away a discount code. I'll put that on at the end. It'll be I'll put it on at the end of the show. It'll be $10 off, and it'll be good until midnight tonight. Okay, so let me show you the video. Bear with me as I do some technological wizardry to make this. Holy smokes! All right. Okay. So this, the story on this dive is this was in Grand Cayman. I had not been to competing for, I think, 3 years, maybe 4. It was quite a long time. And so the joke is that, in freediving, it's like the students in the intermediate class are all super excited because they get to the 100-foot club. And then that's super cool. And they find out, they come to Deja Blue and they find out, oh, you're not in the 200-foot club. I'm like, damn. And they got to try to get in the 200-foot club. And then once you get in the 200-foot club and you start hanging out in the world championships, you find out there's a 300-foot club. And it's always like, God damn, there's another 100-foot club. So my deepest dive is 280 feet. So I'm well into the 200-foot club, but I'd been out of it for probably 3 years. And I kind of thought that maybe my membership would be revoked. So I came down here, and this is my first free dive to 200 feet in years. Right, so I'm going to start this puppy up. Let me make sure you guys can see it, which I think you can. Holy cow, look at this, it's crazy. All right, so I'm not sure how this will work, but anyway, so we'll see. So you're going to start, actually, you know what? Let me explain the parts and pieces before you do, otherwise it'll be confusing, right? So what we do is if I'm going to do a dive to 200 foot, right, like in this video, if I kick the same way all the way down, boom, boom, boom. Well, what happens to the size of my lungs as I dive deeper? They compress. What happens to my wetsuit? I compress, right? So we get, and I'm sure you've experienced this, you get more negatively buoyant the deeper that you dive. Haven't you noticed that off the surface it's kind of hard to get that dive going, but once you get going deeper, right, you don't have to kick as hard, right? So the idea is, if I were to kick the same way all the way down, what would happen to my speed? It'd be getting faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, right? That speed would be going up, 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 right? So that makes no sense, right? I don't want to kick the same speed every time because then I'm going to just go faster and faster and faster. I want to go the same speed all the way down, right? So the general way that we do that, and this is stuff that we teach in the intermediate program, is we teach hard kicks in the beginning, not massive kicks, but hard kicks in the beginning. Then we switch gears to soft kicks. Because now that I'm deeper, I'm not as buoyant, I don't have to kick as hard, and I can still maintain the same speed. And then we get to the next depth, we are so negatively buoyant that we stop kicking altogether, and we enter what's called sink phase. When I took the intermediate class with PFI in 2008, I went through the program. I didn't do particularly well, but I loved the program, and I immediately came back and named my boat sink phase. Right, so when I showed up for the instructor program, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Ted." They're like, "Oh, you're the guy that named the boat sink phase." I'm like, "Huh, that's me." So that's my favorite part of freediving is when you just stop kicking and you sink all the way. All right, so let me show you that. Now you'll be able to see. So I know that I need to do 6 hard kicks. I'm actually counting. You'll see them. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. Okay. I'm learning how to do things. I'm going to back that up. I realize that you guys didn't see that. I'm learning. Bear with me. All right, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to switch to soft kicks. Now you can see the kicks that might have been 8. Anyway, you can see the kicks are definitely softer. And then at some point, I'm going to go into sink phase, which is where I stop kicking altogether. Right? At this point, I'm so negatively buoyant that I don't even need to kick. Right? You can definitely see it's been 3 years since I've been doing this. A little wonky getting things set up, but now I've got a decent sink going. So at this point, all I'm concerned with is the whole 3-stage mouth fill and managing the air in my mouth, that whole thing. So there's a tag at the bottom. Proof that we got there. I've got the video guy right here. And this is, I'm at 203 feet. It's time for me to get the hell out of here. I'm out of here. See ya. All right, so that was the dive. Right, so that's the parts and pieces. That's the parts and pieces of the of a dive like that. Now, what I'll tell you is that was only 200 foot. When I was diving deeper than that, like 85 meters, which is my personal best, I've got some other things. So basically what I would do is I don't remember the numbers, but I would do some number of kicks, hard kicks to 20 meters. I would do some number of kicks to 40 meters, and at 40 meters I would go into sink phase, right? So I've got my hands over my head. I'm going into sink phase. Once I'm in sink phase, let's see. No, I remember what I used to do. I would do my soft kicks to 20 meters. I would do my hard kicks to 20 meters. Once I would get to 20 meters, I would do my 3-stage mouth fill. Right, big 3-stage mouth fill. If you're not a competitive freediver diving 200 feet, you do not need to do that. If you're a spearfisher, you do not need to do that. If you're a recreational freediver, you don't need to do that. Don't go try to do that. It's not needed. But I would do that because I was trying to dive to deep. I would do that mouth fill at 20 meters. I would then start my soft kicks to 40 meters. At 40 meters, I would go into sink phase. At that point, I would count to 10, right? 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Once I got to 10, I knew I was at about 50 meters. Because you're traveling at about a meter a second. Once I got to 50 or 55 meters, I would drop my hands, right, so that I could be a little bit more relaxed, especially in the chest area. Then I would do, it's been so long ago. I think I would count to 10 twice. I think I would do like 1,010, so that would put me at 65 meters. Then I would count to 10 again. That put me at 75 meters. And then I would start to, instead of being so rigid, I would really start to make a point to hunch over, right, so that I can become more compressible, and I would sink kind of the last 10 meters that way, right? But that was a long time ago. So one of the funny stories was I was at Deja Blue And I had the board out, right? You know, because I don't like to teach. I'm always like drawing stuff on the chalkboard. And so I had mapped this whole thing out. So I do, you know, at this point I do this, and then I do this many seconds, and I switch gears, and I go to sync phase, and I count to 10, and I drop my arms, and I count to 20, and then I do this, and blah, 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 and I do this whole thing. And there's this student of mine, Rosabelle, she's a Cuban athlete, Cuban freediver. She was one of the many students that kicked my ass. She kicked my ass in this competition, right? It used to, the first time it happened to bother me, but it's happened so much now I don't even care anymore. I just always tell them, make sure you tell them Ted Hardy taught, tell them that Ted Hardy taught everything you know. So I had gone through this whole complicated explanation. I drew on the board of what I did, and she's kind of got this funny look. And there's a bunch of people kind of watching, and they kind of sense that she's got a lot of, you know, giving me this look. And I'm like, well, what do you do, Roosevelt? She's like, I kick till I don't feel like kicking anymore, then I stop. And then I sink the rest of the way, and then I kick up. Okay, it kind of makes me feel stupid because your way seems a hell of a lot simpler, right? So I mean, ultimately, you just got to do with whatever that's for. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and answer questions. If you have those, put them in there. I'm just going to answer really quick because I see this. The mouth fill is something that competitive freedivers do. If you need to dive to 200 feet, you need to do that. What I will always tell people is people are always interested, like because of the internet, like people can Google what William Trubridge is the deepest freediver on the planet, right? So I get all these students of mine, they're 60-foot freedivers, and they're Googling what William Trubridge is doing, and they're trying to do what William Trubridge is doing. Unless you're a 400-foot freediver, you shouldn't be doing the things that William Trubridge is doing. So mouth fill is a technique that competitive freedivers use to dive crazy deep, past 200 feet. You are not deep diving in that range. There's no purpose to it. It is a waste of your time, and you don't even need to do it. Right? So only applies to competitive freediving. All right, so let me go through and find these questions. All right, okay. Bear with me as I'm scrolling. Squid Nuts, glad to see that the grouper call worked for you. Okay, someone had asked, only being able to equalize one ear. That is a extremely common problem. People say, Ted, only one ear goes, right? Or this one goes and it's really hard to get that one, right? So most of the time, 90% of the time, when you have an issue where one ear goes and the other ear doesn't, it's because you are not equalizing using the correct method and with enough force. And here's what I mean. So whoever asked me that question, I don't know if you're still here. Do me a favor, if you are, put that in the comments because then I'm going to elaborate a little more, right? So if the person asked the question about equalizing is still here, type that in the comments and I'm going to go even more detail. But just in general, I'll go over this. If one ear goes and not the other ear goes, that typically means you're using the wrong technique and or not using enough force. And here's what I mean by that. Frenzel, right? If you're using Valsalva, so always check. Pinch your nose, put your hand on your stomach. If you feel your stomach compressing every time you equalize, okay, so what I want you to do is do what I'm asking you to. Pinch your nose, put your hand on your stomach, equalize 5 times in a row. If you feel your stomach, if you're doing this, you feel that stomach can compress going every time, let me know what you do. So as he's telling me that, if you feel your stomach compressing every time, that means you're doing Valsalva, and Valsalva is never going to work past 30 foot as a freediver if you want to go straight down the line. Like, trust me, I have 10 years of experience. If you're doing Valsalva, if you want to go down perfectly straight, you're going to be stuck at about 30 foot, right? And you may feel that one ear goes and that ear doesn't, right? It's because you're doing Valsalva. So if you're doing Valsalva, you got to switch, you got to do Frenzel, and the easiest way to do that is go to that website and take the equalizing course, and I'll get you sorted. Now, you might say, Ted, I don't feel my stomach doing that, but I still feel one ear go and not the other, right? So let me explain why here. Okay, so watch my nose. This is a strong Frenzel. See how much that nostril's flaring? I mean, I just go, right? I feel super good equalization. When I see my students They watch all the videos and they learn how to do Frenzal. They're no longer pushing from their stomach, but they say, but Ted, this ear goes and that ear does it. And I say, let me see you do Frenzal. Here's what I see. Watch my nose now. Is my nose moving? Yep. Is it moving as much as this? No. Right? So it's what I call weak Frenzal. They're not generating enough force because their technique isn't right, and that's why they have the issue with one ear going and one ear doesn't. So what I will tell you after dealing with over 1,000 students, probably only on 10 students, 5 to 10 students, have I seen them do what I would classify as a strong Frenzal. I know they're equalizing correctly. I know they're generating, I guess probably 2 years ago, the last I saw this. This guy's nose was like this. I mean, so strong. I mean, it looked like his nose was going to pop. I mean, it was perfect. And he's like, yeah, I feel absolutely nothing in this ear. I'm like, okay, this is one of the very rare circumstances where I believe there is a actual medical issue. Something's not right with the eustachian tube, and you need to go get and see the ENT. But it is very, 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 very rare, right? Like 1%. Everyone, when they can't equalize their ears, they always want to go, oh, well, it's my ears. I have to go to the ENT, right? I've had probably 10 plus people over, from doing these equalizing courses call me and say they're about to get surgery. To the ENT was like, oh yeah, I'm going to, drill open your ears, whatever the hell that, the Roto-Rooter the thing out and make it bigger. And I'm doing a Skype session with him. Like, well, you're doing Valsalva. So even if he did all of that, you would still, after the surgery and after you recovered, you'd still be stuck at 30 feet because you're doing the wrong method, right? So I've had about 10 people that I have stopped from getting surgery, taught them how to do Frenzal, and they didn't need the surgery, and then they didn't have the equalizing issues, right? So be very wary about going and getting surgery unless you know that. Now, that being said, I have absolutely had some students that are doing Frenzal perfectly. They feel no pressure in the ear. They go see the ENT, and the ENT is able to do something. But I'm telling you, it's a last resort, and it's rarely a you issue, like something in your head. It's mostly a technique issue. You're just not equalizing correctly. Okay. Boom. Question, James Mayhew. I'm going to butcher that. Anyway, you know who you are. Hopefully that answered your question. So when I shut this thing down, I'm going to put the links to all those programs that I talked about, and I will be putting a discount code for $10 off the 28-day transformation program. So it's $95. I'll knock it down to $85, and that'll be good until midnight, right? So I will. All right, that's really funny. Jimmy Gillespie nostrils from the Frenzal. Who is that? Scott. Very nice, Scott. Oh, Scott Amos. Very cool. All right, so I'm going to wrap this sucker up. I will be back Wednesday, 7 p.m., Thursday, 7 p.m. If you guys enjoy the show, one of the best things you can do is, one, bring someone next time. Take this and then share it on your page, right? Because, I think this is a good thing we got going on here, but it's brand new. I shifted over from Instagram, so I spend a lot of time growing the TED Talks on Instagram, and then I switched and I changed the name. It's on different platforms, so now no one knows about it. So if you enjoyed the show, if you think this is good, the best thing you can do is tell your buddies about it, share it, so folks know about it. If you have suggestions for things you'd like for me to cover, questions, always you can put your questions in there. If you have topics you'd like me to discuss, format, anything, send me a message. I will always open for suggestions. But the game plan will be for a week. So I'll be going next week. I'm going to try to shoot from Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. I'm going to start adding guests. I've got some technological hurdles to figure out how to put guests in this thing that I'm doing. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm sure I will figure it out. So that is that. Dive safe out there. It's not that hard, and I will see you guys tomorrow.